everybody. Welcome to our cool cats chats. We've just changed it a little bit because these cool cats are going to be talking about Ashes of Creation. I'm Madeline Amara with Crucible Gaming Network, and we have Inless, aka Brad, with us as well. And tonight, our discussion, we will be going over nodes in Ashes of Creation because nodes are a huge part of this game and node development. So, let's start talking about the nodes. Now, nodes are the basis of the game, and the nodes are something everybody's going to be working on. There's 4 different types. You have divine nodes, economic, military, and scientific. They start out at level 0 when you enter the game, and from what I've seen, what you do is you just go and you start doing whatever it is you want to do in the game. I don't think there's any real preset beginning. You just go out there in the world and you start in what's called a zone of influence, a ZOI, and you just start doing what you want to do. Say economics, that's something that I'm very interested in. You just go and start chopping down trees from what it looks like, and you start developing your node in your zone of influence where you want to be, depending on what your focus is. So we have a couple of videos we're going to show tonight that are narrated by Steven Sharif, who's the game developer of Ashes of Creation. And Brad, can you take us into video number 1 that just gives you a basic overview of what these nodes are and what they do?
Yeah. Here we go.
Whee!
Hey everyone, my name is Steven Sharif, and I'm the creative director here at Intrepid Studios. Many of you have seen our MMORPG in development, Ashes of Creation. Well, I'd like to take you through part 1 in a series of videos that will explain probably the most important system in the game, our node system. This system is what enables players to develop the world around them, affecting everything from the story of the world to the content that players experience. All throughout the world in Ashes of Creation exist nodes. These nodes at first exist behind the scenes, unknown to the players as collection points for activities. These nodes are divided into zones of influence, or ZOIs as we call them, represented here by the different colored areas, and within each zone is a node as shown. A node represents a specific location where a camp can form and gradually be developed into a village, then a town, to a city, and eventually a metropolis. Every activity a player participates in will fall within a specific node's ZOI, and these activities will contribute to that specific node's development. This is important because only so many nodes can be developed, and certain content is locked behind which nodes develop. This can create conflict between different communities that have a vested interest in the development of certain nodes. When you first enter the world, you will arrive through one of the great divine gateways. These portals are remnants of the civilizations that once inhabited this world. Your ancestors fled their home in haste, and now an eternity has passed, and these divine gateways have opened once again, leading you back to the world of your origin. As our players begin to explore their surroundings, they will find a world teeming with valuable resources, complex quests, and monstrous foes. In this case, one of our players has found some ore to mine, which allows her to progress her artisan class by collecting materials from the world. This other player has begun to harvest wood he needs for building supplies to construct a home on the hillside. As they collect these materials, they are both gaining character experience while at the same time contributing experience to the node that resides within this specific zone of influence. As players participate in more activities, this node will collect enough experience to advance to the next stage of development. All the activity in this area has brought the base node to stage 1 in its development. We call this the NPC stage. Until now, this node was unknown, but the arrival of these NPCs unlocks access to new activities for the players, and as the node continues to progress through each level, it will attract more NPCs, which will provide evolving content that reflects this specific node's location. Let's fast forward to a level 4 node, the town stage. Notice that a new monster is threatening our newly formed town. If this node had not been developed, it may have never revealed itself. The world itself is reacting to the advancement of specific nodes. This town was advanced near forests and mountains, drawing the attention of the sinister creatures that dwell within. If the town had been formed along the coast, perhaps this fisherman would have caught something more dangerous than the fish you see here. The content that exists in Ashes connects in some way to the location and advancement of the node system. It reaches level 5, becoming a city, and some new events are happening in the world. A bridge has been built to connect this area to a neighboring node. This will add a potential trade route that our caravan system will take advantage of, connecting two neighboring nodes and allowing for economic prosperity for players to capitalize on. However, all of this activity has triggered something deep within the mountain. All of this civilization has awoken an ancient dragon. The higher stage a node advances, the more significant events it draws toward it. Epic world bosses will reflect the development of specific nodes and their location. Our world is designed to react to the players by providing new and exciting chapters to an ever-evolving story. A story that reflects the actions of each server. A story that can change and adapt to provide the players an immersive tale woven by the actions of the community. This dragon is the server's dragon, part of the server's tale, and one which might not be seen on any other server. The players now must react to this evolving threat. Thankfully, these players are up to the task, and taking down this dragon has again contributed to the node, furthering its development. From the first stage of a few wandering merchants to the sixth stage of a sprawling metropolis, nodes redefine the world around them, influencing points of interest in the world, quest lines, story arcs, drop tables and resource pools, even the spawn tables for bosses and NPCs across the world. This cycle of nodes leveling, triggering events, and leveling again is the fundamental cycle of growth throughout Ashes of Creation. The world you see reflected on your server will depend entirely on where players decide to plant their roots, and the events and structures that fill the world will be a direct result of where and when nodes evolve. Even we aren't sure where players will take things, which makes this project exceptionally exciting for all of us. We focused here on the growth of nodes in order to show how the base functionality works, but in upcoming videos we'll delve into the sieging and possible destruction of nodes, how player-run governments of nodes work, and how regions grow. I hope you've enjoyed part 1. And if you'd like to get involved in our development, you can register on our website at
Alright. I will have to say this,
Lots
though.
going on.
Right. That it is pretty cool that they have seasons in the game. As you can see, there was like a spring, a fall, a winter. So, and it'll change the world around you. Like that's one thing I think nodes themselves reflect that. Is he says the world reflects and reacts to the players. It's not the players reacting to the world. I mean, in the world's reacting to the players and what they're doing, and the players are reacting to the world and stuff like that. So, like, I love the aspect of that creatures started to spawn because that node has become a town, and so because more civilization moves in, you know, it's just kind of how real life is, right? The bigger a city gets, especially like up in the mountains, it starts interfering with the wildlife, and the wildlife start to come into the city.
Fight back.
Yeah. So having that in the game is really cool. And I think not having a static, like, NPCs are always going to be here at A, and your home point's always going to be here at B, you know? And, like, you have to go to A if you're going to quest. It's like, no, things might actually come and actually, like, interfere with you and your game, and you and everyone else in that area has to deal with those things. But when you deal with those things, you're also passively, and you said it earlier, you passively are adding experience to your node. So whatever you're doing, and whatever shape or form you're doing in this game, so far what I could tell is you are progressing, and that's a big thing.
Yeah, you were progressing, doing just whatever it is that you want to do within your zone of influence. So you're hacking rocks, you're mining, you're fishing. You saw the guy fishing. You're harvesting wood by chopping down trees. But everything that you do is helping to develop your node and helping advance your node into a village, town, city, metropolis.
Yeah, and I guess just to kind of go back over this real quick. So this is a divine gate right here. This is what he was talking about. So this is the gateways that your ancestors escaped through, and they've now reopened for you to come back into Vera. So this is going to be your starting point area. Almost kind of resembles Rift, the game Rift a little bit there. And I kind of quickly going to go through this video. Let me get the section where he has these. So I guess to kind of have a visual here, so all these nodes are going to be different. So this could be an economic one, this could be a war one, this could be a divine one, and I think there was definitely a fourth one.
There's economic, divine, military, and scientific.
Scientific, there we go. So this one could be scientific. So depending upon, like you said, economic, say this one's economic right here. So you would probably start up here, but you would want to, like, you know, journey over here because that's where you want to be. You want to invest your time in an economic one. I know with economics, you will have, I think it was the economic ones that actually had the mayors, like when you got to a city, a village. And you were voted upon. It's every 30 days you vote again on a person. And I know that person, you know, adjusts taxes. They also, if people go like, Missy, I want, you know, we're looking for apartments. There's no more houses. And part two, what we're going to go into, the first part is a lot about housing and how there's actual housing inside the cities. And actual houses. And the thing is, the bigger, I think starting at level 3, which I think is village, you'll have like a small house, but then when the node gets bigger, you get a bigger house, more square footage. All the way to Metropolis, then you actually will have a mansion in the house. And you can sell them, so you're not like fixed. And there's a fixed number of houses within the actual nodes themselves, the cities. And what's
But
cool,
you have to get them while they're in a village, though, because once they progress toward, like, past the village stage, then they will no longer progress and grow in size.
what, the houses?
Hmm.
Well, I thought like they still grow, but there's just a fixed amount. Like it's just a matter of, because I think there's only going to be like an actual set number. Like let's say there's like 10 spots for houses, and those same 10 will carry on all the way to Metropolis, but they'll get bigger. But if there's no houses, then you would talk to the mayor, or you know, there's probably going to be some type of voting poll or something. You'll probably have polls, and you'll have the mayor actually build an apartment complex, which are instanced housing. And from the instance housing, so that'll just be like Final Fantasy 14 apartments. You'll probably just go to a building, and then you'll just, you know, there's 50 spots, and you could just pick one, and then you just decorate within that apartment. And then there's a third kind of housing, which is freeholds. I guess I don't go into that and show that. And those, I almost feel like I wouldn't want a city one, and I wouldn't want an apartment building. I would definitely do a freehold, because you can do a lot more. Looks like you could do like farming and all these other different things there. Like I said, we'll definitely see them.
You can build things like gardens, and you can build, you know, barns and house animals and do all sorts of things. That's where I'm like really not sure about having a home in the city. I'm not sure if you're going to, as it grows, get land around that you can do the same thing. I'm not really quite sure how that's going to work with your in-city home as opposed to your freehold home.
Yeah. So
'Cause it
I mean,
doesn't really explain that.
yeah. So we'll go into part 2. It is 10 minutes long, like I said. We're trying not to talk over the videos just because Steve really gives you a clear insight on how these things work. And then I said we'll go back, we'll move to the wiki, and we'll kind of deep dive a little bit more into every little thing. But like I said, we're definitely, like I said, this is the lifeblood of this game. So this is definitely, it's an important aspect of the game, being it is an important system. So yeah, enough from me. Let me get up number 2 here. Okay, did you have
Hand it
anything
over
else?
to Steven.
Steven, right. All right, Steve, your turn.
Go, Steve.
Hey everyone, this is Steven Sharif, Creative Director here at Intrepid Studios. Welcome to part 2 of our Node series. If you haven't already, I'd recommend you take a look at part 1 in our 4-part video series on nodes. It's a great introduction to the system's overall purpose and design. The Metropolis, the pinnacle of civilization. A symbol of the power and ingenuity of the people, it is wilderness conquered, mastered, and remade in your own image. The Metropolis is effectively the culmination of the node system. It's the biggest thing that players can bring into being and the final level of civilization's development on this forgotten world. The Metropolis requires a large amount of resources to develop and maintain, and because of how nodes relate to one another, there can be no more than 5 in existence at a time. So you might naturally ask, what does it do? To answer that question, we need to know what civilization offers in general. Every stage of a node's development comes with additional services and benefits, and these services really start to pick up at stage 3, the village stage. One of the foremost services that a node offers is housing, and through that, citizenship. And citizenship is a big deal. There are 3 primary means of acquiring housing. The first is our in-node housing. It's here that players can begin buying static housing. These buildings belong to the node, and as a node levels up, the housing levels up with it. A player will be able to purchase a small one-room house at the village stage. When the node advances up to a town, so does that house. The owner enjoys the benefits of a suddenly larger home. His property size increases, his house is located more towards the center of town, and the square footage of his home has gone up considerably. There's new property available at the town stage, but this new property is more akin to what was available at the previous stage, small and modest. Now when the node advances up further, this time to a metropolis, this all happens again. The player's house, already sizable, grows into a mansion. The number of mansions in a metropolis will be the same number of small homes that were available in this metropolis's village stage. Only those houses that existed at the village level will ever become these main street mansions. So effectively at each stage the node advances, you will see the existing homes advance as well. This makes getting in early for a node pretty important, and introduces a real estate aspect to owning in-node property. I know what you're thinking, and the answer is yes, you can sell these properties. These in-node housing options are at a premium, and we expect these to be hotly contested. But if you want to be a citizen, and there are no more in-node housing spots available, you do have some options. For instance, at the town stage and above, your node's politicians will have the option to open up instanced apartments. These are internal-only spaces which can be decorated to your desire. Different price points will offer different sized apartments, and apartment rentals will also offer citizenship. They won't have external spaces to build out, and they aren't quite as prestigious as in-node housing, but they'll still offer some housing functionality to those who really want to be a citizen of a specific node. The final type of housing available are our freeholds. These plots of property can be built anywhere within a node's zone of influence, and only after a node reaches stage 3. These are sizable plots of land that all sorts of structures can be built on. Inns and taverns, forges, smelters, lumber yards, mills, stables, are all things that you might find on a freehold. These plots of land are where a player can really get creative with their buildings. Because they're built within a node's zone of influence, they grant citizenship as well. The larger the node, the bigger the zone of influence is. which means more freeholds can be built. As you may know, nodes have 4 different types: scientific, economic, militaristic, and divine. These types unlock different buildings at each level of a node's progression, contributing progressively larger benefits at each stage of a node's development. At the metropolis stage, these benefits are so wide-reaching that a scientific metropolis will feel very different from an economic metropolis, and a divine metropolis very different from a militaristic one. Not only will these cities feel different, but the regions these giant cities belong to will feel different as well. Different types of metropolises will have specific ultimate bonuses. For example, a scientific metropolis will offer fast travel to nodes within its zone of influence. This is big because there is very little fast travel in the game. A world with even just one scientific metropolis will feel and act much differently than a world without it. Similarly, an economic metropolis brings world-changing functionality to the table. Normally markets are local, and players can buy from and sell to only players who are in the same node. Economic metropolises break that convention, and they have the capability to build a market that integrates with all the nodes in their zone of influence, providing for a far larger market than any other metropolis could hope for. Divine and militaristic nodes also break world convention in one way or another. In other words, everything changes once a node reaches the metropolis stage. Along with those benefits, node type also determines the type of government that a node has. The most traditional government comes from the scientific node, which allows the citizens to come together and choose their leaders. The divine type allocates its leaders through service-oriented quests that directly help others and their node. Quests that prove their faith and dedication to the node. Economic type governments are run by an elite oligarchy. These positions can be bought and sold, so if you want to rule an economic type node, make sure your coin purse is heavier than your competition. Finally, the militaristic type is ruled by combat. Whoever are the last ones standing have proven their worth to lead by iron fist and sharpened blade. These warriors can only be removed from office by citizens who are better and more bloodthirsty than they. Once a leader is chosen, they have a lot to do. Outside the basic services that a node provides, leaders must choose what other service buildings to construct, which means they should have a clear plan for what they want to accomplish during their tenure. Some buildings might simply provide a zone-wide bonus to their citizens. Others might provide expanded markets. Some may increase a node's ability to defend against a siege. There is only so much space for these kinds of buildings, so the leadership will need to choose well in order to keep their citizens happy. Along that same line, leaders will need to tax their populations to provide these services, to construct these buildings, and to keep node atrophy at bay. Too much and their populations will abandon them. Too little and the node will decay and delevel. Savvy leaders can supplement their node's income with trade routes and trade agreements with other nodes. Be sure to provide some armed escorts for those caravans. Absentee leaders need not apply, as every leader can be replaced in the next election cycle. Citizens and only citizens reap the reward of the metropolis, gaining the benefits that their taxes pay for. Additionally, citizens can gain titles according to their position within society. Most of these are reserved for those who have been with the metropolis longest, but latecomers can earn their way to the top with enough effort and guile. Only citizens can participate in government and the different election processes. If their leaders have built marketplaces, citizens can set up shop there by purchasing time from the city and paying taxes on the goods they've sold. In Ashes of Creation, what is built can be destroyed, and metropolises are no different, but we feel that the effort to destroy something must be equitable with the effort to build something. Because of this, the higher level a node is, the more difficult and challenging the task of initiating a siege becomes. That means that sieging a metropolis will be an act of epic and world-shattering proportions. The success or failure of that siege will be written into the history books and likely impact every person on that server. Should it succeed, the metropolis will be deleveled or even destroyed, erasing the global benefits that it once provided, while at the same time opening up the opportunity for another node to take its place. Maybe one of a different type, maybe one led by a tyrant, or maybe none at all. Should that siege fail, that means that the hopes and dreams of the attackers, who should be legion in number, have been thwarted, and the status quo will endure. As I said in the beginning, metropolises are the pinnacle of civilization. They represent this through their size, through their systems, and through their citizens. Their weight is felt across the world, and once one is established, everything will change. For the better or for the worse? Well, that's up to you. I hope you have enjoyed this overview of the Metropolis. We have so much to share with you about Ashes during our development. Everyone here at Intrepid Studios is so...
All right.
Oh boy. I see a lot of espionage coming down the pike.
Yeah, I guess I had my nodes wrong. I guess they were, so I guess it's scientific that has the
Yeah,
that has the
it's
mayors
a
and stuff like
vote.
that. So the economic ones, though, it's like Uldal then
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say Uldal. It's
for Final
whoever's
Fantasy.
got the most coin.
Yeah. The Divine, though, that one's pretty cool. I guess I think that's going to be almost kind of like Vatican-style cities where, like... And the military ones, PvPers are all, like, military nodes. You want PvP, there you go.
Staying out of military nodes. That's
And see-
not for me.
And he must have taken it for me with my old guild back in Star Wars. Because we had the Galactic Warlord tournament, remember? And if you can beat us, you can lead us. So if you have a military node, if you can beat us, then you can lead us, and they're going with that. And I'll tell you, that aspect is really fun, and people really get into it. So for them to do something like that, like, and I think definitely with
I'll
alts
just sell
too.
you my wares.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to think about it,
Let's
like
do that.
technically, I think it'd be cool to actually go into each to have, because it said you have to go and become a citizen, and I did. Now that we watched it again, with the housing, so yeah, so it sounds like the moment that you hit a village, you need to buy a house, and then keep that house all the way up to Metropolis, because that's how you get your mansion. So I guess more house plots open up the bigger the city gets, which is understandable. But if you wait
Well,
all
it
the way
sounds like you can also build out from that too, which is what I was concerned with, because he did mention when your house grows and becomes more of a mansion, he said you could still build out. So you must have that ability. The land must widen as well so that you can build things on it, because he did mention that with apartments you cannot, which makes sense.
Well, apartments he actually did say, and I thought it was only one size fit all, but I guess there are bigger apartments, they just cost more money. So there's not a default sized apartment.
It's nice that I'm not stuck to it with a bachelor apartment if I don't want it.
Right, definitely. Did you have the wiki up?
I have the wiki up.
Okay. Well, I know from our first one, we already started with this, but I guess Missy, if you would like to be, Missy's the narrator.
The narrator.
I guess we'll reread this nodes. Yeah.
Okay, so nodes, as we know, are the heart of the world. They create the ebb and flow of life. At their core, nodes are preset points in the world, wrapped in a zone of influence, which they call ZOIs, and surrounded by geographic areas that change over time based upon player participation. The world map is divided into regions, with each region containing multiple nodes. As a node advances, it influences the type of content within itself and the surrounding areas. Players do not create nodes, but if they are a part of the government for a specific node, they have the ability to influence diplomacy and modify building types and construction and services within that node. There will be 103 node locations at launch, each with its own impact on the narrative and development of the world.
Yep. So yeah, I
Okay.
mean, definitely. Yeah, I'm excited about the nodes. #nodes are life.
Yep. And everything you do is growing that. Every tree you chop down is helping to develop your node and advance your civilization.
Oh yeah,
Just being tense.
and I could easily see guild nodes easy. Like, I mean, and the thing is, I mean, and they'll probably will show like the whole map at some point, hopefully before. But you know, people are going to be like, we got to get to this area, and we got to start working here. So then the guild will own that land, that node, and it'll be.
Well, it makes sense because they're all going to work on that, and then they're not going to be worrying about people, like coming in and destroying it too. So you have to kind of. I think that would probably be the way to go, is to have everybody decide, okay, what type of node do we want to start at? And then you're all working towards that common goal, and then everybody has a focus. So when you come into the game, you know what you're doing, and there's multiple different things you can be doing. You can chop trees, you can harvest ore. There's like, I don't know yet all the different things for each type of node that you can be out there doing.
Yeah. And one question I have is, because they said, you know, your one node influences other nodes, like smaller nodes and stuff. And I said there can't be a metropolis next to a metropolis. It's like a metropolis will be next to probably like town, like, you know, 3 towns, and then you'll have villages next to those towns, and then you're gonna have, you know, I think it just gets smaller and smaller. But I wonder if that means that there's multiple smaller nodes. So there's a node in each zone of influence, but they said smaller nodes within that zone of influence. So I'm wondering if you have one major node that they start off with, but then more pop up, if you know what I mean. Like, I wonder if I could find. Yeah, I'll pull this back up here real quick. Yeah. So like, let's say you have your node here. This is your main node spot, right? It's the only node spot that pops up in the beginning, right? So then you build something here, and then it gets to like level 1. Then I wonder if other little nodes start popping up around here. Like, because.
And will they all be different? Will they be like an economic, a military, or are they all going to be economic nodes in that zone?
So, well, I know this one. Yeah, I mean, you know, to be honest, I don't know about that one. You know, but I almost feel like if this node is, say, a scientific, you know, I think the other nodes, you know, they technically might be randomized to make it a little more interesting. So, like, you could have a military node here, but it's not going to ever be as big as a scientific one here, right? Because it'd be crazy if you just had scientific, unless these other nodes are scientific nodes and they're just enhancing to this. So that's something that I guess we will have to definitely see with that, and how they plan on managing that. Also nodes, I guess, just to kind of throw this in there. As you can see, like this one, I'll pull this one up here. So this design right here, as you can kind of see, it's kind of like desertish, you know, almost like Middle Eastern, you know, kind of architecture. So I know this will technically be, oh, do you remember the human race that was like,
Let me just see.
I don't know if you can find the one race. It's like the Kalar, maybe, or maybe the Kalar were the. So you had kind of like the upstanding, like, you know, human-looking type, and then you had the kind of like, and then you had
the humans.
Like,
They're the Ayla. They're the Ayla are the humans, and then you have the Kalar or the Valoon.
So so the humans are what now?
They're called Aylas. They're
Okay.
Ayla humans. And then the 2 different types you can have are Kalar and Valoon.
Is the Valoon the one that's like kind of like Middle Eastern themed?
Yes, the heat of the desert.
Okay, yeah. So this metropolis would reflect them. And like I said, a lot of like, I have to think that their art team has to be I know they're looking for a lot of people constantly. I saw they had an IT operations person. I'm like, hey, I'll go work for them. Well, Gratmissy, you could probably actually work with their marketing on that stuff. But yeah, so I guess to quickly go over, like I said, so divine nodes, economic nodes, military nodes, scientific nodes. Steven went over that pretty well. Your NPCs, as you could tell, divine priests, economic merchants, military guards, scientific as scholars. And then, like I said, their specialization is going to be different on there.